Hello, my techs. How's everyone doing out there? So today is going to be a fun little day. We are back at becoming experts, over some of the most common insects. And today I actually wanted to talk about cockroaches. The reason why I wanted to talk about cockroaches is because we actually, me and one of my new guys, we went and treated cockroaches at a few restaurants. Pretty gross, right? Well, only gross if you know which ones. Cockroaches are just gross in general, but I want to kind of go over. So the most common ones of cockroaches, at least in California, I'm going to mainly talk about one that is worldwide. I mean, it's everywhere. Wherever humans are, these guys are, okay? So I'm going to talk mainly about those ones, but I want to just let everyone know what's going on here and what we have to deal with in California. So one of the cockroaches is a brown-banded cockroach. Okay, brown-banded cockroach is actually pretty rare here in California, at least central California, maybe southern. It may be seen a lot more. I have officially run into only one case. Okay, out of all the years doing it, only one time have I seen an actual brown-banded roach. So I don't want to talk too much about those because we just don't ever see them. Now, they do typically stay inside, but they can hang out in drier conditions. They don't need a lot of humidity. Their diet's a little bit different. They can live off of glue and different things, just like other cockroaches. But they're a little bit different than the next one, which is a German cockroach. Okay, so German cockroaches are pretty much what everybody sees in houses, hotels, restaurants. If you haven't seen them yet, just give it some time. I'm sure you're going to go out to a house and you're going to walk in, or an apartment or whatever, and you're going to run into a massive amount of these things at least once in your career, if not more. Those are the ones we're actually going to focus on today because those were the ones that were actually in the restaurant. The next one that we deal with, actually I should say we don't really deal with here in the Sacramento area, is the American cockroach. In some situations we will, but majority of house situations, we actually will not deal with American cockroaches, if ever. They're typically in the sewer. Maybe downtown, they'll come out at night and they'll be running around on the street. But most of the time, they stay in the sewer. They kind of stay to themselves. They don't come out. And a lot of homeowners will not see these, if at all. One that was really massive here a few years ago was called Oriental roach. Okay, so the Oriental roach is this black 1.5 inch roach, okay, jet black when it's fully grown. Female and male are the same color, and they look about the same. The wings are a little bit smaller. There's subtle differences. But so the Oriental roach took off here. And then out of nowhere, we started seeing what we thought in California was an American roach and Oriental roaches infesting garages, houses around the property. Little did we know, we weren't actually dealing with an American and Oriental cockroach. We were dealing with the Turkestan cockroach. If you haven't listened to our previous episodes, if you go back, we actually talk about, I think it's Help Cockroach Invasion in California. If you go back to that episode, that is actually going to explain a little bit more about the Turkestan cockroach. That one, so the males look like American cockroaches and the females look like Oriental cockroaches. How you tell the difference is on a female, on the shoulder where where shoulders would be, you actually have a small little brown line, almost like shoulder pads. And so you would see that on the female. And so you could tell between it, if it was an Oriental or Turkestan cockroach. Now the males of the Turkestan cockroach are actually smaller than American cockroaches, and they're not as red. They're more brown. So they're very hard to kind of distinguish if you're not really looking, and you'll instantly just throw out these names. But what was happening is, we were essentially just assuming we were dealing with American cockroaches now. They just came out of nowhere. We weren't. We were dealing with the Turkestan roach. And the Turkestan roach ran the Oriental roach population out. I haven't seen an Oriental roach for probably about a year, maybe a year and a half. All of the roaches I see now, the big roaches, we call them outdoor roaches, have been Turkestan roaches. So that's kind of what we see here in other parts of the country, in the U.S. and worldwide. You're going to see different types of roaches. I've heard of crazy roaches out there, massive roaches. I'm going to talk about the ones that, ready for this crazy fact, that rely on us. Okay. German cockroaches are crazy little guys. Okay. These are the cockroaches that probably a majority of the movies or even TV shows and places that you heard, they can live through a nuclear explosion, right? These are actually probably the ones that would live through it, or the American roaches, because they're underground, they're in sewers. So either one of these ones, but the German roach gets a bad rep. They give the bad name to all the rest of the roaches. All the rest of the roaches don't rely on us. They don't live with us, really. German roaches can't live without us. Okay? That's a really good fact to know. Because if you are treating a home or you're dealing with this and there's people there, it makes sense, okay? We'll kind of loop back around to this, but pretty crazy that they actually rely on us. And so that's why we see them so often and they're always around. But a little bit about the cockroach is they go through an incomplete metamorphosis, okay? If you remember the last one that we talked about ants. These guys, so when they're born, they go through nymph stages. So they're an egg, which are in an egg sac. So if you go into a high infested cockroach situation, you're actually going to see these like purse looking things that are light brown. Majority of the time, you're going to see them just kind of in a drawer somewhere, detached, because German cockroaches, the females, actually detach the egg sac before the eggs hatch. So they carry it around with them so that the survival rate's a lot higher. And then right before they're about to hatch, the female detaches the egg sac. 30 to 40 come out of this thing. And the majority of them live, depending on the situation, temperature, food, water, everything, and go on to, reproduce. So from being born up to adult stage is about 100 days. I was reading that it can be as low as 60 days. Okay, so 2 months, you can have an egg to an adult. And majority of the time, it looks like it's an 80-20 rule. So 80% of cockroaches that are running around a house are actually going through the nymph stage, and 20% are adults. Really interesting on that one when I read that. Also, the 30 to 40 could be actually less nymphs come out of there, so less little cockroach babies coming out of the egg sac. It all is going to depend on food and water. So food and water is a massive thing. Okay, one thing that we talked about this in previous episodes is a lot of the new guys get have you seen the albino roach? Okay. Sorry for all the old guys. I am actually going to tear your joke down and throw it away. There are no such thing as an albino roach in houses. So those are actually the German cockroaches. They just went through a molting stage. They just barely molted. They're white because their exoskeleton hasn't hardened yet. And so in some cases, if you're going in, you're fogging places, you're doing a whole cockroach treatment, you may see actually a few of these guys. And when you do see them, it's not an albino roach. It's just a nymph that's grown up. So with their soft little shell. So an adult German cockroach, this is where I think a lot of guys hear, because I was told that there was a ton of brown-banded roaches running around and this and that, and a lot in Hispanic households. And now that I've been doing this a lot longer, that's the exact opposite. So I have yet to run into brown-banded roaches until just recently, and it wasn't actually in a Hispanic house. So I don't know where these older techs were kind of getting their information from that were kind of training me. But the main distinct factor between a German roach and a brown banded roach is the stripes. So the stripes on a brown banded roach, you're going to get 2 stripes horizontal. On a German cockroach, if you look at the head, you're going to have 2 stripes on the head, okay, leading down its back. And even through the nymph stages, you're going to have those 2 black lines. They're just going to go further down the back. Okay, so instead of just mainly sticking to the head, they actually follow all the way down the body. So even if you run into a nymph, you're able to still identify what type of roach they are instead of finding an adult roach, okay? But in some cases, when coming to identify German roaches, you may need to actually place out some glue boards. Main areas are going to be, in my experience, whoever's done experiments in labs and all that may have some other answer. But in my experience, you get them typically by microwaves, not microwaves that are up. Okay, so microwaves that are actually up, connected to cabinets or above the stove. Typically, you don't actually get those. I don't really get them around there. But I will get them around the refrigerator. If there's freezers, around freezers. You will get them around the stoves, the ovens. I mean, it's just where food's being cooked. Oil gets spilt. It's a perfect place to hide. Also down low underneath the sink. Why? Because there's water. So you get condensation down there, possibly, depending on where you live. Also, the other thing that you can get is if there's a leak. If there's a leak, they have water. Okay, now the other places, when the population grows too big, you want to check bathrooms, and then lastly, you check rooms. Unless the rooms have refrigerators or anything else in them, because if they brought in a little mini fridge that was infested, you could get them starting from there. So either way, you want to check. Also, refrigerators have a drip pan in the back. That is because the refrigerator has to stay cool, okay? And so how that system works is you get condensation build up. You may even get lines that freeze underneath there. So when those lines unfreeze, you get all the water, okay, that's dripping into that drip pan, which roaches need water. They need food. Perfect combination for a kitchen, okay? And that's actually why they live off of us. So with that, so going back real quick, so you can actually, in a room temperature home, you can get from hatching all the way to adult 60 days. Normally it's 100 days, okay? So at 100 days, they're able to start reproducing. Another thing I read is that German cockroaches from one female with an egg sac and its offspring reproducing as well can have up to 1 million offspring, okay? 1 million roaches producing in 1 year. You could have 1 million. So when someone says, oh, I've only had them for a couple months, think of how many they have. And especially if it's unsanitary inside, there's food left out, it's just perfect condition for them. Watch out, because you could have even more if they're reproducing and able to pop out, adults within 60 days. It's pretty intense. So you could have a ton of roaches. So when they say a couple months, that could be a very, very hard thing to handle. So just be ready for that. Okay, so one of the other things, I think I already talked about it. I'll hit it one more time. So they rely on us. This is a fact I didn't even know. I didn't know existed. I didn't even think about it, because I always have people ask me, oh, well, I'm so clean and I got roaches. And I always would tell them, no, it's not, because you're not. It doesn't matter if you're clean or not. You have to bring roaches in, which there's some truth to that. You're not just going to get a roach out of nowhere. You have to it has to be brought into that environment. But because roaches rely on us so heavily, they stick around us. They are going to crawl into your purse, their backpack, a friend's backpack, a friend's purse, and then they come over and then you drop them off and boom, you have roaches. So a big thing with that is they rely on us. They're going to stick around us. And when the populations get too high and there's not enough food in the house, or they just start getting really bold, they will start eating the grease and, some of the buildup on your face, which is crazy that I was reading. They will also go as far as eating your nails or even biting you if you have too many roaches. Crazy, crazy, crazy. They also cause allergies, and in small children, which everyone do your own research. This is research I've done personally. But do your own research. But from what I've read and I've seen is they can actually cause asthma in small kids. Okay. So when you're treating, you as a technician, you walk in, you identify German roaches. It's a high infestation. There's little kids. I have gone as far as, I have yet to do it. I haven't done it yet, but I will call CPS if I have to. Some people may say, well, that's a bit extreme. We're talking about kids, okay? We're talking about little children. Adults are the ones that have to think for the little children. So if the child can't think and can't control the situation and the parent is deciding to neglect that, we have to step in as a professional. We have to be that person. And so I've actually told a few people, if you don't change, I have to call CPS. I've even told a few managers at apartment complexes, if you don't talk to them, I have to call CPS. I will call CPS on them and get that taken care of. Because I can't see a little kid growing up with asthma and having all these respiratory issues because they're living with cockroaches that are just, feces are everywhere. Babies are everywhere. They're crawling all over the food. Cockroaches carry a lot of organisms on their bodies, and so they will drop those different organisms off onto the food. Let me actually tell you which one, because right here. So here's some. So German cockroaches, so let's see. Food products, they infect food products with their feces and defensive secretions, physically transport and often harbor pathogenic organisms, may cause severe allergic responses, and an extremely heavy infestation have been reported to bite humans and feed on food residues on faces of sleeping humans. And then it kind of goes on and says other things, but I've also heard asthma, not only allergic responses, but actual asthma. And if you have asthma, there's a strong possibility that you go into a home with a high infestation, your asthma will start to act up, which is just, it's crazy. So we just have to be, we just have to be smart with that, especially what we're walking into. So that's a little bit about the biology of them. They are, I don't know if they would be considered social insects, because ants and wasps are considered social insects, but they do congregate. And one thing that I've actually called out on one big company is Raid. I think they're doing it wrong when they say this, and they're lying to people. There is not a nest of cockroaches. So if you're hopping into this and you just read like a couple Raid bottles because you bought it in the past, there are no nests. You don't actually, they don't bring food back to their nest and then they all feed on it like ants and then they all die. That's not how it works. So females are, they're running around. They're hunting for food. They're looking for food. They're trying to figure out what's going on. The nymphs are doing the same thing. Right when they hatch, they instantly are going and looking for food. They're going looking for water, everything you can think of. So it's not just one. It's not just one-sided, So it's not just a nest. So there can be multiple. Now, when you open up cabinets and things like that underneath the sink, you may see them clustered together, but that doesn't mean that it's an actual nest and there's a queen there. That's not how that works. So hopefully that answers some things that, some doubts that you guys may have had about that. But so they are omnivores as well. So omnivores can eat anything. We are omnivores. We'll eat meat. We will eat vegetables. One thing we won't eat is glue off book bindings. Roaches will. So roaches will eat toothpaste or even toothpaste residue. So toothbrushes that are left out, they could actually go on that and eat what's been left behind on a toothbrush. Or if you leave the cap off or there's all that toothpaste around the cap, they could eat off of that. So when it comes to control, and why I say they're omnivores, because it's not like some types of ants that will eat only sugary types of food, or where their diet is specific to a certain thing. Cockroaches will adapt and they will eat what's there. If it's fruit, it's fruit. If it's veggies, it's veggies. If it's grease, it's grease. If it's a Jimmy that just died, they're going to eat Jimmy as well. So they'll eat each other in scarce situations. So you have to keep that in mind when you walk into a situation. The main thing that you have to ask some people and to gain over, a lot of control really fast is going to be cleanliness. The cleaner the people are, it will not necessarily eliminate the roaches, but it is going to help. It is going to help a ton in the control process. So if there's no food to eat, just same with rats, same with mice, same with any of the other bugs or insects, you take away their food source, you eventually, what happens is now you are controlling. I guess this example actually works really well with roaches too. I usually tell people this with rats. I learned it. Here you go, Pest World. Pest World's actually going to be in Las Vegas this year in November, 2nd to the 5th. Check it out. They did not pay me for that either. But Pest World's great. But I learned this from Pest World in one of their classes. So the teacher, and I wish I knew who it was. So sorry for not knowing your name or remembering who you are. But they essentially said, look, cockroaches, I'm going to use cockroaches. They actually were using rodents. But cockroaches live in a triangle, essentially, okay? The triangle is built up of 3 sides. One of the sides is food. One of the sides is water. And the other side is harborage, okay, where they live. So you take away one of those sides of the triangle, everything starts to collapse. Same thing with roaches. If you can either control the food, you can control the water, or you can control where they're living, you essentially are going to break that triangle and you are going to destroy their entire way of living. And one other thing I learned is distress. So roaches actually can be stressed out. So when you're moving things around, you're constantly changing their environment. you can raise their stress levels, which will actually determine how long they live. So they could die quicker just because of the stress levels. So as crazy and as fast as these things reproduce, it's actually quite amazing how sensitive they actually are. So just moving things, giving them stress, putting them in that situation will actually make their life shorter. So let's talk how to get rid of these guys. Okay, so their situation, how fast they can reproduce, what they need. Now that you walked into a house, somebody brought that in. Now they have it, whether it was in a microwave, an old refrigerator, somebody gross came over, slept over, had roaches, and now these people do. We have 2 systems that we use. Okay, we have 2 different treatments. Okay, one is focused a lot on chemical. The other one is actually more on the eco-friendly side. I wouldn't say eco-friendly 100% because we are still using chemicals. It's more on the IPM side. The other one is too, but the other one is more chemicals, forcing more chemicals into areas and in different cracks and crevices and things like that. The other one is more, let's pull back. We're going to use a lot more glue boards and different things. Okay, so I'm going to talk about both on how to control. So we'll talk about the more eco-friendly one. This treatment actually takes longer. Okay, it is a longer process. You are going to have to show up more times to the property over months. Because you're not going to eliminate these things very fast, okay? Remember, you have about 100 days before the babies actually grow up to start reproducing. So you have to be smart on how you're controlling it. There was an article that I read, and I actually talked a little bit about it on previous episodes, is that they say essentially if you don't get 90% control within the first 30 days, you won't gain control at all. Okay, now if you go back to the 80-20 rule, which 20% are adults, 80% are nymphs, the 90% makes sense because you would be eliminating majority of the nymphs, obviously, and a big majority of the adults. So you would be, if it was a perfect world, you'd be bringing the adults down to 5% and the nymphs down to 5%. And out of those that you actually didn't kill, they were probably coming in contact with an IGR, insect growth regulator, which probably would stop the population. So it is very key to get that control within that first 90 days. Also, because we don't know what stage the nymph's at. The nymph could be an adult tomorrow. We have no idea. So we have to be smart about it when we go in. So with this type of control, you use a ton of glue boards. Okay, when I say a ton, I mean a ton. You are literally putting them everywhere in a house. Okay, in every single cabinet, top and bottom. Behind refrigerators, multiple traps. Behind stoves, ovens, multiple traps. Underneath the oven and the pull-out where you can put extra storage, multiple traps. Okay, in the bathrooms, multiple traps. If they're in the rooms, multiple traps. Then we go through and we bait. Okay, we are using a chemical, but it's typically hidden away. No one's coming in contact with this chemical, and they're not going to clean it up either, which is going to have to be a little bit of work on your part. You're not just going to go and place a bunch of bait on the outside, on countertops and stuff. That's not how that works. You want to actually go find where are these clusters of roaches. Sometimes you actually may set them out, the bait where it's just right in the open because there's so many roaches, it's there. But we go and hide this bait. We are pulling out drawers in kitchens and we're actually placing the bait behind or even on the tracks. So you are going very, very deep into this kitchen and you are placing bait where roaches are going to be hiding. Okay. The next step with that program is spraying. So we do spray as well because we have to put an IGR out there. And we will have a knockdown product. Sorry, guys. What we use is Alpine WSG. Alpine WSG is a scentless product. It has a transfer effect, which is used for ants. We just talked about it. And it helps eliminate the population fairly quick. So we're using Alpine with an IGR, insect growth regulator, and that is going to be coupled in with those traps and the bait. And in some cases, we'll actually use a few other things, aerosol cans to kind of flush certain areas out depending on the level of infestation. But we're trying to get that 90% plus within that first 30 days. Okay. How you want to set up those after that, I'm not going to go through how I do that. That is completely up to you. You need to create your own program on how you do that and what makes sense. I'm going to give you guys the idea. This is how fast they can reproduce. This is what they do. This is what you have to look for. You guys can create something after that. What we do is based off of the information we know. This is how we do our treatments, and this is why we do our treatments. So it's all based off the information. Okay, so the next step, the other one, which is more of a chemical-based, which actually, I won't say gets better results, but it does get faster results, okay? That other process can take months. This process is a little bit heavier. It requires preparation. The other one actually does not require preparation because of how we're doing things. Glue boards are not toxic, so we can place those anywhere and it doesn't affect anybody. Same with the bait. The bait where we place it is not going to affect anything. Doesn't get on plates, doesn't get on bowls and everything like that. So the prep behind that first treatment is actually on the eco-friendly treatment, we'll call it. Is triggered for a less stressful prep. They don't have to really do too much. We do ask them to do a few things, but it's nothing as extreme as the next one. The next one is a lot of chemicals. It is a lot of crack and crevice treatments and flushing roaches out and getting in deep where these are. Not using bait, because you can't use bait with some of the products that we use when we are doing this more intense cockroach treatment. That actually, so the prep behind it is and you guys have probably all heard this, so I might be just repeating something, beating a dead horse on this, is pulling everything out of the kitchen cabinets. You literally are cleaning everything. You gotta go through, you gotta clean the floor, you gotta pull everything out, you gotta put stuff in the living room, cover it with a sheet, you gotta go through all these processes, right? They gotta go through all these steps. That's exactly what we make them go through. They got to pull everything out. We then come through and we're using dust. Oh, and I did not say dust. Dust is massive in cockroach control, guys and women, technicians. It is massive. If you are not taking off the faceplates on electrical outlets, and you are not dusting where you could possibly dust, if you're not already using an aerosol or you're not using an Actisol machine or a fog machine or a B&G compressed air machine, whatever they call it, dust. You need to dust. Dust, 1, lasts forever. 2, depending on the dust you have, has a pyrethroid in it, so it's going to chemically kill them, okay? And then on top of that, it's going to just keep on killing because what it is, the dust acts as if it's like a cactus field or a rose bush field, right? If you ran through it, you would just be shredded. You would just be getting cuts everywhere. That's what this dust does to bugs. It cuts their exoskeleton and it dries them out so that they can't live. And so when you put a dust behind one of those face plates and you put that back on, dude, guys, girls, techs, PMPs, owners, that's going to start wiping these things out. Holes in walls, dust it. I don't care. No one's going to be sticking their hand in there anyway, and if they do, they're probably replacing the wall. and they got masks on and everything that they need to have on during that process. Dust it. Dust that. Okay? That's going to be a savior in a lot of these situations, especially if you're dealing with a multi-family home, apartments, duplexes, triplex, fourplex. You dusting is going to be key in getting control over that entire building, because if you don't dust, now they can run from wall to wall. And so dusting helps prevent that. The other thing is they have invert. It's a dust, but it's also a bait. So it's kind of cool. And it has like a little tiny straw, and it comes in like, it almost looks like actually a toothpaste tube, one of those little samplers that they give you at the dentist. It's just like that. And so you can actually use that, and you can dust and you're baiting. So you're giving them food and you're wiping them out all at the same time. So it's actually pretty cool product to use. But that is one of the key things in both processes. In the more heavy process, we're now going through, so everything's cleared out. We now go through and we're treating the cabinets, the cracks and crevices. We're looking, look underneath the cabinets. They don't always connect the cabinets. So there's usually about a 1/2 inch gap in between some of the cabinets that you need to either fog from up above or down low, depending on how your cabinets sit. Those are massive areas. So you're looking for any cracks and crevices. You got to move the refrigerator out. You got to hit around the motor. If you don't hit around the motor, you are missing a massive thing, because that is where a majority of them actually sit. Same with the stove and the oven. You got to pull that out, and you got to work around those areas. It heats up. They like the heat. One of the next main big ones that you may have to tell them to get rid of, or depending on the product you have, you may be able to treat it, is the Wi-Fi. No, not actually connecting to the Wi-Fi. The actual box. So the Xfinity box, the AT&T box that they rent, or if they bought one, it all has holes. It has electronics. Okay? Those will get infested because there's a motor in there. It heats up. It's a computer. Okay? As electricity is passing through, heat goes up. Perfect conditions for them to explode. They need warmth. Okay, they do eventually die if it's too cold, and they do die if it's too hot. Any insect. Cockroaches, German cockroaches, are just a little bit more sensitive. They can't actually live outside. They would be destroyed if they lived outside. So check those things. Check computers. You'll have to ask them. We had a few families. They were so infested. Their computers were infested, and they were gaming computers, and they were so infested that we couldn't treat them because we would have broken them. And so at that point, they actually had to get rid of them if they wanted to get rid of the roaches. But once we get everything under control, they'll be fine. So a lot of dust. We're using a lot of aerosol cans. We're flushing them out of areas. We are treating the house. And in that situation, sometimes I'll actually use glue boards as well. I typically don't use the glue boards the first time around because, let's be honest, I'm flushing them out of every crack and crevice. They're going to be running everywhere. They're going to get on the glue board. So usually I'll do it on the second and third treatment. And if the treatments keep going, I will use them on those treatments. And I'll usually put them at the far corners of the house. A little trick I'm giving you guys right here. This is super smart. Even if it's not in your little handbook that they tell you to do it. Because if I go stick a glue board in a room that doesn't have any roaches, and I'm on my second and third treatment, and then I start seeing roaches in a glue board, what does that tell me? Where are these roaches moving? Where do I need to focus my treatments? Or where do I even need to treat? Maybe you never even treated that room. So those are some key things that you guys need to do. Use the glue boards for your help, but on that one, I do not use a ton. I'm not going through and trying to drop that population with glue boards. It's a little obsolete at that point when you're using all of the chemicals that we are using. We're dropping these things like flies. There's hundreds, if not thousands, depending on the situation, dead all over the floor, all over the place. We, in some cases, will use a vacuum and clean some up. I know that's a big practice at some places. I actually like that idea. It may be hard for everybody who's listening. If you're a smaller company or anything like that, you may not be able to get vacuums on every single truck, or you may not have a specific truck dedicated to just a cockroach service. And so vacuuming them up may not even be an option. But those do exist. Companies do that. And it's awesome because you're helping out the customer a ton when they come back into a situation. They're not going to run into a house full of just dead roaches everywhere that they have to clean. And you're going to help suck up a lot of feces, a lot of food products. And you're going to help through that process, because how many of us, if you have done cockroach treatments, have gone back a second treatment or a third treatment, and you open up a drawer and you're like, oh my gosh, there's still dead roaches in here. Like, you guys haven't cleaned anything, like the drawers, the cabinets, nothing. You haven't even tried. You just kept everything out and you didn't even try to clean anything. Some people are super good. They'll come back in and just deep clean everything. But some people won't. Some people just leave it as is and they're like, meh, whatever. So vacuuming could be another huge help. So, technicians, I hope that was a helpful few little things. I hope you guys did learn a few things today with cockroaches and cockroach control, especially coming into the German cockroaches being inside the home. It is a huge thing it is a big stress to deal with. And to be honest, cockroach treatments and bedbug treatments are probably one of the most stressful at times, but gratifying as well, because you get so many people that are so happy that you came and you eliminated something that they have had for years. And so it's really awesome to have that and to hear them thanking you and being so happy, that you were able to do that. So just be aware of what you're dealing with. Be smart about it. Use the products that you have on hand. And don't be afraid to bring up newer products, better products, or something that could possibly help you in getting that control in that situation and complete elimination eventually. Because once again, German roaches depend on us. And so we can gain that control. We just have to be smart about it. And everything that you're given, all the tools, all the chemicals, everything, we can. It is possible. Some people don't believe that, but I've done it at multiple properties, and they today are still cockroach-free, German cockroach-free, because we still service them, and we're still going out to their house every couple of months to take care of them. So thanks for listening in. I hope you became a German cockroach expert. And hopefully you can at least bring something back to the table, bring something back to your team, to your peers, and you can be like, hey, did you know this? Hey, did you know that? Hey, we should try this. Hey, we should have 2 services. Hey, we should give options. I hope this helped out, guys. But thanks for listening in to the DNA Pest Control Podcast. Remember, write a review if you like or don't like us. Or me, or Anthony, doesn't matter. Also, if you have any questions or you have any ideas or you want to know anything, send us a message. Send us an email, DM me on Instagram. That's going to be the fastest way to get a hold of me. I will respond very quickly. So DM me. You email as well on Gmail, but I prefer Instagram, DM. But thanks again for listening to the DNA Pest Control Podcast. Have a good one.